Hello and welcome back to Simplicity in Peak channel. If you have watched my last two videos here on this channel, you already know how to start a conversation, and then the biggest mistake that can really make people, to start losing interest in a conversation, okay? But I promise you, in today's video, we are going to be answering another important question that so many people are really struggling with in reality. And if I may ask you, what do you do after the conversation has already started? If I am not mistaken, I guess maybe you have experienced this before. I mean, you have finally gathered the courage to say hello to someone, and the other person responds, and then you were able to, exchange a few words with the person, and then suddenly, there is this sudden silence in the conversation, and in reality, you got to realize that your mind goes completely blank at that moment, and then you started thinking because you are worried. And so you got worried, and within you started asking yourself this important question that is coming with this quiet voice that only you can hear. What do I say right now? And because you don't know what to say at that moment, the conversation slowly fades away. And this kind of experience in reality is definitely what most people are not comfortable with. And if that has ever happened to you, don't worry anymore, because I got your back. And then I want you to know that you are not the only one that have this experience suddenly. I mean, this sudden silence in a conversation. But the good news that I really have for you is that keeping a conversation going is not about you always having, something to say that is clever, to say at every point in the conversation, but it is rather about you knowing exactly how your conversation naturally grows. Okay, now today I will show you a few simple habits that can really help almost anyone to keep a conversation flowing naturally. So let us begin. The first habit is this: be curious, not impressive. Many people enter into a conversation and they are always trying to sound so interesting. But the people who are easiest to talk to are usually those ones that are, genuinely interested in others. And that is why when someone tells you something, you don't have to just rush to tell, your own story to the person. Instead, you should rather become curious to ask yourself, what can I really learn from this person that I am having a conversation with? And if you do this, it is going to shock you that that small shift that you have has what it really takes in changing everything in your conversation for good. The second habit is learning to ask a follow-up questions. This is, one of the simplest ways to keep a conversation alive. Okay? Imagine someone says to you, I enjoy cooking. Many people will simply say, oh, that is nice. And then the conversation ends immediately, just like that. You know what? Instead, I want you to ask a follow-up question. For example, what do you really, enjoy cooking the most? When did you, start cooking? What is your favorite meal to prepare? I want you to know that one simple answer can lead to, an entirely new conversation altogether. Therefore, always remember this. Good conversation, really grow from curiosity. And so the third habit is something I call listen, respond, and then share. Let's say someone tells you, I recently, started learning photography. First, listen carefully and then respond to the person. That really sounds interesting. Then share something small with the person. For example, I have always admired people who can really capture beautiful moments. It gives me joy. You know, Saying this really means a lot. Now, notice what happens next. You didn't change the topic, but then what did you do? You rather build on that topic. And that is exactly how good conversations, continue naturally without you hustling for them. Now, the fourth habit is not being afraid of short pauses. Many people really panic the moment, there is a silence in their conversations. And that is why I want you to know that silence is normal, and every conversation has moments where both people are really thinking. So, whenever you are having a conversation again with someone, instead of you becoming uncomfortable as a result, of a sudden silence in your conversation, I really encourage you from now henceforth, to be more courageous, to take a deep breath and then smile, because this really works a lot like magic in calming, the sudden tension that you have down. And then you just think about, something that the other person just said to your hearing during what the conversation. Okay. When you do what I just told you right now, very often the conversation, is going to continue naturally without you even hustling for the conversation to continue. Okay? You have to know this, that silence is not your enemy, but panic is your worst enemy. The fifth habit is noticing the person's emotions and not just the person words. Because sometimes, people tell you facts, but behind those facts lies their true feelings. So, if someone says, if someone says to you during a conversation that I just started a new job, please don't only hear the job, but you should also hear their excitement or maybe their nervousness. Okay? Now, you could say, to the person that sounds like a big change. How, are you feeling about it right now? Now, you are connecting with the person, and you are not just connecting with the information alone, okay? And the honest truth that you really need to know is this: those conversations are often the one that people remember the most. Now, here is something that is very important that you really have, to take note of. And what is that? You do not, have to carry the entire conversation all by yourself, because a conversation, is more like a game of cash. And so you throw the ball and the other person throws the ball back to you. So if someone gives very short answers and then makes no effort to continue the conversation, please, 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 don't assume that you are failed on your own part, because the truth is, whether you like it or not, in reality, it is not every conversation that is meant to last long. And trust me, there is absolutely nothing at all that is really wrong with that conversation, because that is perfectly okay. Okay? And your job is not to force every conversation to work well in the way you want, but your job is to simply, show up with kindness, with curiosity, and with respect, to whoever that you are having a conversation with in your life. Okay? Now, I want you to really be aware that there are some conversations, that will last for just 2 minutes. And then other conversations that you have will really last, for maybe 2 hours. And that is how life is for you. So here is a challenge that I really have for you this week. And so the next time that you are having a conversation with someone, please, 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 do not worry about saying, the perfect thing, but instead, you should rather ask one thoughtful follow-up question. Now, listen without interrupting the person. Share something small about yourself to the person, and do not be afraid of a few seconds, of your silence in your conversation again. And always, remember to always practice these 4 things in every conversation that you will be having this week from now henceforth. Okay? And if you practice, these 4 things in every conversation that you will be having this week, as I told you earlier, then little by little, you will start to notice something changing in all your conversations. For example, you will stop, worrying yourself about what to say next because of the information you've gathered in this video. And you will rather start by enjoying every of your conversation much more. Okay? If you have watched, the first 2 videos in this series, you have now learned how, you can really start a conversation, how you can really avoid the mistakes that really push people away in conversations, and now how to keep a conversation going naturally. Now, I want you to know that communication is a skill, and like every other skill, it gets better with you when you practice. And so if this video really helped you by adding value to who you are already are, then I really love you to give this video a like, share this video, and then subscribe to Simplicity in Peak channel, because every week in this channel, I share practical lessons that have what it takes, in helping us, to really communicate better, think better, and become better versions of ourselves. Okay? Thank you so much for giving me, the opportunity to spend this quality moments with you. And I really want you to crest, what I am about to tell you right now in your subconscious mind. And this is it, okay? The best conversations don't happen because someone always knows the perfect, words to say. But the best communication or the best conversations really happen because someone genuinely cares enough to listen. Now, take, a good care of yourself, and I miss you, but then I'm going to see you again. Trust me, in my next video. Don't go nowhere. Promise me that.